Welcome to the Kinda Sleepy Podcast. I'm your host, Knowledge, and who do I have sitting to my left?
Miss EP in the building.
It's been a minute, man.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, sorry for taking so long to get to you guys, but all our equipment got stolen.
It's ratchet.
Yeah, all our equipment literally got stolen at one time. The only thing I got left is mic stands. So we're back in the studio. Shout out to Hugo for letting us use their studio. And hopefully soon we'll have some video for you. But yeah, so it's been a very eventful 2 weeks, but we're not going to bombard you with everything. But we've got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we're just going to jump right into it. First of all, I want to say a young man who was 20 years old and had impacted a lot of people lost his life last week. And folks stopped not to mourn him or render him aid when he'd been shot, but instead chose to post videos of his lifeless body and other folks standing around rendering aid to him. That bothered me. XXXTentacion. If you guys don't know him, he's a rapper. He was 20 years old. He'd been accused of a lot of, very, very heinous activities and actions that he was still going through litigation for, his, stuff like that. And I once I heard about these allegations, I was like, I'm ready to cancel this dude. That's completely wrong. It's inexcusable, all that. Like I was, and the thing is, I'm still not against holding him accountable for his actions. And he's 20 years old, right? And I started paying attention because people told me, a couple people who are his fans. I was not a fan. I will not sit here and pretend to be a fan. I will not say that I was very, very well versed on his music. But some of his actual fans, that I know that are younger folks said, hey, man, pay attention to what he's doing now. I said, okay, well, let me see what he's doing now. And I was like, okay, well, it seems like, this young man has apologized and started to try to make amends for what he's doing and stuff like that. Now, do I think that this young man, XXXTentacion, deserved whatever punishment the court was going to give him? Yes. There's absolutely no excuse for what he did to that young lady and the victimization that she suffered, the pain that she had to suffer, which she will undoubtedly deal with for the rest of her life. At the same time, I don't think that justice at this point was served because he was the victim of a robbery, as some people are implying, whether it be online or in barbershop conversations or whatever. What disturbed me most about his death was that at 20 years old, somehow he had managed to collect all of these demons. Mm-hmm. I mean, for real.
It was heavy.
He had somehow managed to collect demons on top of demons on top of demons. Because the thing is, they're only having a sick and depraved mind can allow you to do some of the things that he was accused of doing. And I listened to some of his music prior to me knowing about the allegations, and I realized I came from a very, very dark place, a very ugly place. And like I said on Facebook, my personal Facebook, I said I've seen some ugly places and things. I've been to third world countries. I've seen combat wounds. I've seen the aftermath of war. I've seen people here in America shot. I've seen abject poverty. I've seen killings. I've seen death. I've seen dead bodies, that had been left out, not in, a third world country or in some foreign land. I'm talking about here in America. I've seen dead bodies baking in the summer sun. Like, I've seen that. I've smelt that smell. Nothing, in my opinion, is as dark and as ugly as the things that occur within our minds. Mm-hmm. And I'm not absolving him of any of his actions. I'm just sad that at 20 years old, he had managed to accumulate these kind of demons. And I looked at his story, his backstory after he died. And his mother, she was, I guess what you would call a deadbeat mom. Him as a child was the last thing that that she was concerned with. He had been in the juvenile justice system. He told a story once upon a time about him beating up a kid in juvie, beating him bloody, and he had told the guard that if this young man the young man had identified as gay, and he said, if this young man makes me feel uncomfortable, I'm going to kill him. It said something to that effect to the guard. And I guess according to his story, he had gotten out of the shower and the young man was staring at him, and so he literally beat him bloody. And he yelled to the guard, "I told you I would kill him," as I left. And that was dark to me. That was ugly to me. And there are a lot of people who react like that, sadly.
True.
But that's just the reality of the dark days that we're living in. And then, some of his music was dark, and some of the thought processes he had within his music was dark. But if you looked at what he had done lately, he was trying to change it around, and he actually owned what he did, which is more than I can say for a lot of these losers out here. Bill Cosby still running around talking about, well, they wanted it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
R. Kelly talking about, why y'all messing with me? Y'all messing with the black man. No, you are a evolved predator. But this young man, I think he had accepted that he had done something wrong and was willing to, accept whatever his fate may have been as it relates to his terrible and heinous actions. Now, I think he deserved to be punished 100%, for what he'd done. I think the young lady who was the victim, who people, after he died, people were reaching out to her saying, you should be glad he's dead and stuff like that. She was like, no, I'm not glad. She's like, you guys are victimizing me all over again by continuing to put this in my face. And regardless of what he did, at some point, I still did love him. And I'm like, while I'll never understand the thought process behind that completely, I can understand it a little bit, but completely I'll never understand it. We still lost a 20-year-old young man who was doing things, I guess that was his dream, and who had some problems, and he had some demons. And, to a certain extent, we all struggle with things. His just was so ugly. And that bothered me so bad. But, I'm not shedding a tear for him. Because like I said, I wasn't a fan. I'm sad about the fact that he had accumulated so many demons at such a young age. That's what makes me sad. And what I will say is that I hope his family, his friends, his fans, and the young ladies that, he may have harmed, I hope they all find peace. That is my biggest thing about this. I hope they find peace. And I hope that anybody that was affected, by his music in a positive way continues to move forward in positivity. So that's what I'm going to say to that.
I totally agree. It's pretty, it makes my heart heavy, to be honest. I really don't like the videos that are on social media. I get that's where we are nowadays, and I get there's only so much you can do. Some people are willing to help, some are not willing to help. But, if I'm in a situation and, I have the option in attempting to help someone or something versus recording on my phone, I just don't see myself, pulling my phone out and recording or taking pictures. I have a really big thing about, even when I go places that are enjoyable, if I take a trip or if I do something, I'll take a few pictures for myself. But I really try not to just engage with my phone and recording and taking pictures. Yeah, it's great to be able to look back on that stuff later, but I feel like we're so connected to these cell phones and the need to, it's not documenting things. I don't know what exactly that's about. I mean, we do it and post it on social media so other people can see what we saw. But I think it just takes away from it a lot. I was really bothered by that thought process and the fact that that's just something that we are used to doing now.
And my thing is, some people are like, well, maybe they, do you think he deserved help? My thing is, here's my logic behind that. I can't make that snap judgment. In a moment of crisis, I react. Mm-hmm. I don't say, ooh, shit, this is going to be good for the gram. Or, this can go viral. Or, ooh, this can be on WorldStar. No, in a moment of crisis, I react. And whether or not, like, the thing is, if I see somebody and I see a crisis, I'm not saying, well, what did he do to somebody, prior to that?
That's not
because
my,
that same
that's
thought
my place.
process, I can't assume whether that person is good or bad. All I know is that person needs help.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that thought process, well, maybe he didn't deserve help. Well, look at it like this. When Zimmerman decided to follow Trayvon Martin, he made that same kind of snap judgment.
Right.
It was, this man is doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking in my neighborhood wearing a hoodie. He's a young black male. I'm going to confront him and do XYZ or not do XYZ or whatever. I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt either way. And my thing is, whether somebody is is wrong or right, I don't know in that moment. But I know the last thing in my mind is to pull out my phone and record them dying.
Right.
My first reaction is to put pressure on the wound, call
Something.
for EMS,
Comfort that man, like, cause somebody did anybody say so? Even though he may not have been able to speak, regardless of what you believe in, did anybody stop and pray with that young man?
Here's my
something.
And I said this on Facebook, and I don't regret saying it. I mean, XXXTentacion's story ended the only way that it could.
I understand.
He lived a certain way. He reacted to things in a certain way, and he was trying to change his life. I understand that.
The best way he knew how.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you make certain enemies, when you do certain things, when you engage in certain activities, there are certain times you just have to pay the piper. And sometimes the piper comes in the form of the reaper.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was the only way. His story was either going to end in a hail of gunfire like this, or his story was going to end with him taking himself out. And that's kind of the reality of what he done. And, people are comparing him to Tupac, some of the young folks. And I'm not mad at their comparison. If that's their Tupac, that's fine. I'm not the old dude in hip-hop that's like, you young niggas don't know nothing. No, mm-hmm. I'm not that guy. What I'm saying is, just like Tupac spoke death over his life, mm-hmm. XXXTentacion did the same thing. And when you put that energy out there, and essentially at some point,
it comes back.
You're going to have to answer for that energy. You got to.
He wasn't really, that's not my era. That's not my thing. I didn't really know his music. But I think the biggest thing that bothers me the most, without going down this huge rabbit hole, with regards to whatever you may believe in, if you believe in anything, is that I feel like we all have choices. We all have this battle between good and evil, right? Within ourselves, not just even outside of ourselves, but within ourselves. And I feel like some of the people who have the greatest abilities to impact people in a way that you don't even think of, those people are some of the people that I feel like battle the biggest demons, whether it's multiple, whether it's one big one that you just have an issue with, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like for him to have so much, I don't want to call it evil, but for, and to have so much darkness. It's so much dark, right? I don't want to say evil, but for him to have so much darkness that he battled with on a regular basis, I think that it stems from, I can't diagnose him completely at all, but just my own opinion. I think a lot of that stems from, hurt, disappointment, and pain, and we tend to express those things in the form of anger. I think that's a known fact. It's the easiest emotion to express versus some of the other ones.
It's primal.
So, right.
It's very primal.
And so for him to have some of the things that he dealt with, and there was no, lack of nurturing and things of that nature to help him growing up, that became his go-to. That was easiest. And so in that case, you end up with this, young man who still struggles with these things, but at some point you start to grow, you start to realize some things, you want to make some changes. Right. In his attempts to make those changes, you could see on some of his social media videos and things like that, he would express himself and try to make sense of things and somewhat apologize for his behavior. My biggest issue is no one else has the right to take away a choice of anybody. I don't care what that choice is. I don't care if it's, what a female who feels like she's been misled by a guy. You don't have the right to take away anybody's choice that they have in life, whether I want to be friends with you, whether I want to work here, you can't take away someone's choice. And I feel like by ending his life, they took away his option to atone for the things that he had done and make the change. Like, he doesn't have that option anymore. It's gone. And so I feel like the followers that he had, I'm thinking, well, he did impact people, and how, because I think about some of his stuff and I'm going, well, I really don't relate to that. But for the people that really followed him and they felt where he was coming from, he did speak for them. Right. He did bring, honestly, the darkness into the light. I'm speaking on the darkness, right? Right. He did do that for those people who needed that voice. And for that, I can, I respect it for what it is. But those people now, it's like, do you realize that you may not have that choice later? Right. So as opposed to holding on to your darkness, try to bring that darkness into the light now, because he didn't get the choice. You may think, I got later. I got when I get older to do it. No, you don't. So I'm thinking, is that the bit, is that the thing that you get from this? I don't know, but I hope it helps somebody look at something differently.
Yeah. Well, peace to his family, friends, and everybody else in his orbit.
Yep.
Let's move on to something a little more positive. Want to give a shout out to Tiana Smalls. She is the owner of a Fire Flower Beauty Company. That's Fire Flower Beauty Company. Fire Flower is one word. I thought that was dope. And she also owns T Smalls Makeup. So Tiana Smalls was on a Greyhound bus from Bakersfield, California to Las Vegas recently. And when they got to the California-Nevada state line, there's a checkpoint. Now, the checkpoint was typically to make sure you weren't carrying fruits into California because of an invasive fruit fly species, which I've never heard of an invasive fruit fly species, but hey,
whatever works.
Them ain't the problems that we have in the South. You know what I'm saying? Right. We have boll weevils. We don't have invasive fruit flies. But apparently at this point, the bus driver made an announcement that said, "We are being boarded by Border Patrol. Please be prepared to show your documentation upon request." So Tiana Smalls did something that I think that all of us should do when faced with injustice. She stood up and said, "This is a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. You don't have to show them shit. This is illegal. We are not within 100 miles of an international border, so they have no authority to ask you for anything. Tell them to F off." That's what she said. She
said what she said.
Exactly. And so here's the thing. She doesn't know Spanish. And she had a large number of Spanish speakers on the bus. So she went so far as to get Google Translate to say what she said, and she repeated herself in Spanish. And the lady that was actually sitting next to her didn't speak English, and she said she looked terrified. And so she looked at her and said that again in Spanish, in her native language, and letting the lady know that she was cool. So the agents hopped on the bus. She stood up and said, "I'm not showing you shit. I'm not driving this bus, so you have no right to ask me for anything. And the rest of y'all don't have to show them anything either. This is harassment and racial profiling. Don't show them a damn thing. We are not within 100 miles of a border, so they have no legal right or jurisdiction here. You can Google it." That's what she says to the agents. The agents said, "Fine. We can see that you're a citizen because of your filthy mouth." And then they turned around to the bus driver and said, "Go ahead." Sometimes all it takes is one person standing up, man.
Yeah, that's all. That's all we need sometimes. Just one.
All it takes is one person standing up. And the thing is, if more people will stand up, I got into, this is one dude on Facebook. I had some time, apparently, it was either Thursday or Friday. And I said that, racism and white supremacy in this country exist because white people allow it to. Mm-hmm. And he got offended and said my statement was racist. I said, "How is my statement racist?" I said, white people are the majority in this country. Black people, for 500 years now in this country, have been begging, pleading, asking, and doing all kinds of stuff, asking all to be treated as equally, fairly, and to be left alone. And it hasn't worked. So my thing is, until nothing changes in this country until white people are affected. So until the majority stands up and says, "Hey, racism is wrong," instead of just putting their head in the sand and ignoring the fact that racism even exists, nothing's going to stop. Nothing's going to not happen. And the thing is, a situation like this, one of my former comrades in the Army, who I was in Iraq with, he would probably support this action, boarding buses, telling immigrants to show their documentation and their papers. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how Nazi Germany worked. "Quote unquote, good, reasonable people just stood by and let other folks get treated poorly."
Yeah.
And so until somebody stands up in defense of other people, this is going to keep happening.
Well, my biggest thing is, if I'm already not respected because of the color of my skin, no matter how educated I am, no matter how many good points I can make and arguments I can have, those things aren't respected either. So until the person who is respected makes those arguments on my behalf,
I tell people all the time,
it's pointless.
You sit here and tell me that you see me as an individual and you judge folk based on the individual, and then I look at your Facebook profile and you have pictures of President Obama as a monkey.
Yeah.
Where you call Michelle all kinds of men and stuff like that and disrespect her, and you say all sorts of racially charged statements, but yet you tell me you see me as an individual. Mm-hmm. No, you just as racist as them. You're just a polite racist.
Right. I've had several people that I've been friends with on Facebook, and I've seen some of their posts, and I'm going, yeah, I get, me, so You may look at me different. Right. I'm a good one. You know, you look at me a little different. But if you can judge a man that you've never met, you don't know personally, and you can make some of the most ugliest statements about him,
it's not
I'm
even
kind of questioning.
Because I'm like,
things.
okay, if we have a difference in politics, let's argue facts, figures, and policy.
But they attack him personally.
You attack us personally.
Right.
And the thing is, now, here's the difference. We can talk about Donald Trump personally because what he says and what he does are abhorrent activities as a person.
Right.
Nobody can point to any instance of President Obama acting in a manner that was less than respectable.
There's not a lot of presidents that have been as personal as Trump. Like, he expresses his personal opinion, you know, and things of that nature.
George Bush, every time I criticized George Bush, it was about politics.
Right.
It was about politics. I was like, I think this is stupid. I think that Katrina should have been handled significantly better, and I do think that there was a racial element as to why it took so long to get down there and why those people have been treated so poorly. Mm-hmm. And I talked from a place of facts, figures, and logic. The stuff that they're saying now, come on, dog.
Yeah.
It's disturbing. But I say that to say this. You know, if you're listening to this podcast and you see somebody being mistreated, just stand up for them. We always talk about how we don't like bullying and we don't like, people being mistreated. Well, stop letting other folks, including the government, bully people who don't have a voice and don't have the means to defend themselves. Stop it. It's not cool. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. We'll talk about it now, as a matter of fact.
Let's get it.
There's a post on our Facebook page, where they show the inside of a converted Walmart that is turned into a immigrant children holding center. They have these children in cages. They have these children laying on floors, completely separated from their families. This is what a concentration camp looks like, folks. If you went to high school and you took world history, you know where concentration camps are, okay? It's what the Nazis put Jews in World War II. It's what America put Japanese folks in, those internment camps. They put Japanese Americans in internment camps in between 1942 and 1946 here in America. This is a concentration camp. This is people like, well, if they didn't want to be there, their parents should have brought them here legally. I'm like, you sound stupid. We're talking about morals here. Morals. Morality should never, be subservient to legality. Slavery was legal. The Holocaust was legal. Putting those Japanese Americans in internment camps, legal. All of these things were legal. Shut up. Please shut the entire hell up. I'm so tired of y'all people talking about that dumb stuff. Shut your entire ass up. You sound dumb right now if you think ripping children as young as a few months old away from their parents and putting them in cages and having them sleep on floors is acceptable. You sound stupid. You sound real stupid.
Call me Dorothy. Maybe I have this just dream that things could be so different, but it seems to me that it's so easy to fix, and I don't understand why it's so difficult. If, as Americans, we live here, and if there are things that occur in America that we don't agree with and don't want, is it really that difficult to come together to say, we don't want any parts of this, not here, not in America. This is not what America is supposed to be supposed to be about. Why can't we come together? No, we don't want this.
I'm sorry, stop. This is exactly what America is supposed to be about. We just lie to ourselves and say it's something else. We have accepted the biggest lie in the history of world history, that America is this bright, shining melting pot. And that was the best place to make something out of nothing? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But is it this utopia where people are not judged by the by the color of their skin or their religion or their nationality? Hell no. Hell no.
True.
It's amazing that you look at these quote unquote intake centers and there's a mural of Donald Trump. at the entrance to the intake center, and it has the White House and it has the American flag behind him, and it says, this is literally a quote on the wall. It says, "Sometimes by losing a battle, you find a new way to win the war," which says to me, at the very least, that they know this is a terrible idea, but they're going to do this to find another way to still discriminate against these immigrants.
Do we have a number? Like an approximate number of how many kids?
This one has according to the time that this Washington Post article was posted, it was 1,469 children in that facility.
You have
and rising.
You have effectively kind of set back 1,469 children. They will never forget that. I don't care how young you are. Yeah. It has an effect on you mentally, whether you're an infant and you've just been separated from your mother, like you need that connection, you need that there, or whether you're an older child who can remember the images and what it looks like and how you felt. You have great job, Trump. I mean, it's horrible. Like what happens to these children as they grow older? They turn that hurt and those things.
And what made it so bad, he did some political grandstanding by getting a couple of families. He cherry-picked instances where families had family members murdered by undocumented immigrants.
That doesn't work for me.
Now, here's what makes it so bad. There were pictures of the victims that they were holding up on stage behind him. You know, this fool went through and autographed those pictures? How sick is that? How sick is that?
Some of his actions, I mean, yeah, some of his actions really make my stomach like turn. Like it's sickening. It really is. Like it's disturbing.
And it's not just you. There are other Americans who are sickened by this. And I'm gonna want to move on before I get too deep into it. But one American who was sickened by this, I got to give her a shout out, man. It's the owner of the Red Hen in Virginia. So Sarah Huckabee Sanders decided to eat at the Red Hen with her family, and the chef calls the owner, and the owner says, well, let me come see, because a lot of the staff at the Red Hen had a problem with it, and she said that she believed that Sarah Huckabee Sanders worked in the service of an inhumane and unethical administration, and that she publicly defended the president's cruelest policies, and that couldn't stand. And she said, "I'm not a huge fan of confrontation. I have a business, and I want the business to thrive. This feels like the moment in our democracy when people have to make uncomfortable actions and decisions to uphold their morals." And when she walked into the restaurant, she saw Sarah Huckabee Sanders there, and they had cheese boards in front of them, and they were ready to, eat like any other family, just like everything was normal. And so she huddled with her workers, and she knew that several of her employees were gay. And she knew that Sanders had defended Trump's desire to ban transgender people from the military and pretty much the overall anti-gay stance that the Republican Party and a lot of conservatives have taken. And she said, "Tell me what you want me to do, and I can ask her to leave." And the employees at the Red Hen said, "Yes, we'd like you to ask her to leave." And so she stuck by her employees. And she said it was important, that Sanders had already been served. They had not discriminated they had not discriminated against her when she walked into the restaurant. She'd been served. They put the cheese boards in front of them. They treated her like any other customer. But when the employees felt uncomfortable and it was not cool, she decided to make a choice in the interest of her workers, the people who came there for her and worked long hours and made sure her business was successful. She said she walked up to Sarah Huckabee Sanders and said, "I'm the owner. I'd like you to come out to the patio with me for a word." And they stepped outside, away from the crowd, away from everybody, out of the public eye. And she said, she explained that the restaurant had certain standards, and she feels she has to uphold those standards. And some of those standards are honesty, compassion, and cooperation. And she said to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, "I'd like to ask you to leave." And Sanders immediately responded, "That's fine, I'll go." She said they offered to pay, and the owner, Ms. Wilkinson, said, "No, it's on the house." And they left. So I think more business owners need to do two things. Number one, stand by their employees. And number two, stand up to these people who have these ugly, abhorrent, deplorable beliefs, you know. And I think that's an amazing thing. I applaud the Red Hen. When I go to Virginia next month, I will be stopping through to get something to eat. You know, I'm lactose intolerant, so I'm not gonna get no cheese board. But you know, definitely coming through to stop by. Shout out to her. Hopefully Sarah Huckabee Sanders and took her family to Jack in the Box, and they still ate. So, moving on to other people who are trash. Melania decided to go see the immigrant children that we talked about earlier that Sarah Huckabee Sanders defended detaining, partially by using the Bible, just like Jeff Sessions, who's from my home state, with his stupid ass. Melania,
the eye roll that just occurred.
I know. Melania got her dumb ass on a plane, wearing a jacket that said, to go see those immigrant children wearing a jacket that says, I really don't care. Do you? Now, here's what's so stupid. Trump decided to come back and say, well, that was a message to the media.
Right.
That says she doesn't care. The fake news that says she doesn't care what you have to say about her.
Okay, call me naive. Like, really, check me for just 2 seconds and call me naive. Because I really don't, I really, honestly, I don't pay attention to too much in detail about Trump or her. I was kind of shocked.
About what?
Her choice in wearing the jacket that said that.
For somebody,
because she's normally pretty quiet from what I understand.
Here's the thing. I hate to.
That's a big statement.
People are all like, you know, she's so smart. She speaks all these languages.
No, she's not.
I said that was a necessity for her to succeed in the modeling industry, was to learn those languages. And most people from other countries, America's the only country where you can be as successful as you are without knowing another language, pretty much.
Right.
America, Canada, maybe a few other places. Let me say it like that. But coming from where she came from, she had to know multiple languages because she had to maneuver through multiple countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is not a marker of intelligence. That's a marker of her willingness to survive.
To survive, exactly.
Now, Melania Trump is a model by trade. She is also now the first lady of the most powerful country in the world, which means she has a team. So even if Melania is dumb enough to wear this, her team isn't, especially on the way with her as an immigrant going to see immigrants during a time where this is a political firestorm, and they know that every time she wears something, it's a media, you know, thing.
I feel like she was required to wear it, to be honest. There's so much that's in the media about
now, I didn't think
her.
About that.
There's so much that's in the media about her and how, you know, she doesn't seem supportive of Trump and there's no connection between the two of them and so on and so forth. So, hey, even though you don't agree, you're going to wear this jacket because you need to seem like you're on the same page as him.
I can see that.
And we need you to attract the females that support this versus them just being attracted to him.
To a certain extent, she's being held hostage.
Yeah. I think the jacket was a requirement. Like, this is a necessity of you to do this. The women that support him need to know that you do also. We need those people on board. So you have to wear this jacket.
I think that's a very valid point. It's a shame. That's all I can really say about it. Speaking of other things that are a shame, shout out to dumbass Mary Stevens, who lives in East Cobb County, Georgia, with her dumbass. She went to the June 12th meeting of the Cobb County Commission and used the time set aside for public comment to enter the debate on whether or not Confederate General Joseph Johnston's name should be removed from a local park. I think, personally, you know, that removing these Confederate generals who were Confederate names from all these monuments and parks are a thing that's a good thing. We should not be celebrating and revering the evil that was the Confederacy, the traitorous activities of the Confederacy, and by lauding them with these memorial parks and names and schools and things of that nature. So I think it's a good thing. But her dumb ass got up there on June 12th. And, you know, rather than argue, you know, the typical points that, you know, people's families fought in this war and they fought bravely, even if it was for a poor cause, they fought bravely. And this is, you know, kind of a slap in the face to them. She decided to give a handout showing the population increase of free blacks in the South from 1790 to 1860.
Well, she worked long and hard on
and
this.
she said,
She said, I'm going to get them with this one. I think it's going to blow them away.
She said that black folk didn't mind slavery that much.
They didn't have a choice. Like, you stupid.
Here's a quote. And you see, every decade, there is an increase in free blacks in the South as opposed to the North. So had slavery been so bad for the freed slaves, they wouldn't have left the South.
Hold on. Run it by me one more time.
As you see, every decade, there's an increase of free blacks in the South as opposed to the North. So had slavery been so bad for the freed slaves, they would have left the South. Sit your dumb ass down.
That tickled me like deep down inside.
And then she said the Ottoman Empire owned white slaves at one point. Every race throughout history has either had slaves or been slaves at one time or another. The war was not about slavery. Read Lincoln's inaugural address that said he was fighting to keep the Union, not slavery. Georgia was named after King George II, who approved of slavery. Should we change the name of our state? America was named after Amerigo Vespucci, who took slaves on his voyages.
You know, everybody got a family member that's a crackhead. Everybody. Like, you have, I mean, and you may have more than one. No, see, right. I mean, you got different levels, right? You got a functioning, alcoholic for an uncle or somebody. You got one that's just like a pissant type of drunk. You got different but do you rationalize it and say,
it just keep calling me.
I had an uncle that was a crackhead, so I didn't really see anything wrong with me doing it.
I didn't really mind crack.
It wasn't that bad.
You just keep calling me.
All right, Pookie.
Shout out to Cobb County District 4 Commissioner Lisa Cupid. I can only imagine the amount of restraint it took
to sit there
to make this statement, though.
Oh, yeah, well, to listen, period.
She said, I recognize that there is variation with respect to the sentiment that people have to the park. But I want to make it very clear that some of the issues brought up this morning, particularly as it relates to slavery, is part of the reason why there is a desire for neutrality in the name. When I tell you that statement took so much in terms of strength to make and not go completely in on this pasty heifer standing up here trying to say that slavery wasn't that bad, I hate this lady the same way I hate Kanye West, which, by the way, I have bootlegged every single good music release, including Tiana Taylor's most recent effort. And I love Tiana Taylor. And
I heard it. I heard it wasn't too good.
I would like to say I am very underwhelmed, and that Kanye produced all these albums from The Sunken Place. I'm so sad that Nas got better beats and a worse album. How, Sway? This album sounded okay. You know what? We're not gonna go. We have so much other stuff to go into. We might have to do like a 15-minute just bonus specifically for. Matter of fact, I might call Natty and me and Natty get together this week and just do a 15-minute bonus just specifically on all the good music releases, just to tell Kanye he trash. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, you people that are trying to rewrite slavery as something else, I'm sick of y'all. Like, I really wish y'all would, I ask this question sometimes, and I hope it doesn't become offensive. Mm-hmm. Why Natalie Holloway and not your ass?
Yeah.
Why Trayvon and not you? Because clearly there are some people who could have contributed something good to the world rather than your dumb ass, ignorant ass, stupid ass, uninformed opinions. And I'm tired. In the words of that little girl I think she was Young Thug's daughter, I'm motherfucking tired. I'm tired of y'all.
What'd you say?
I'm motherfucking tired.
As she picked her nose.
Right. So the Marines took an L this week. There was a Marine in Camp Lejeune, which is here in our state of North Carolina, who was found guilty in a summary court martial, after bragging about participating in that Unite the Right racist rally in Charlottesville last year. He was convicted of failing to obey an order or regulation and making a false official statement in the UCMJ, which is the Universal Code of Military Justice. 2 different articles in the UCMJ as it relates to that. Now, first of all, the Marine Corps is an amazing institution. I've met some wonderfully amazing folks. I had the privilege of meeting General John Allen and General Joseph Dunford during my time in Afghanistan. And those are 2 amazingly intelligent and strong men, powerful leaders who believe in the brotherhood of man under the common fatherhood of God. And I love those 2 gentlemen to death. I think they're great folks. I think they're great leaders. I've met amazing people in our military. I'm a veteran. Natty was in the Marine Corps. Actually, last weekend, we hung out, me and you. We hung out with 2 guys who are Marine Corps veterans. Shout out to Plex
Cool
and
people.
Hogan. Plex and Hogan, shout out to y'all. We had a really good time.
Good
but
time.
this is one of those things that is unacceptable in any way, shape, form, or fashion. The Marine Corps, the Black Marine Corps veterans that I know would not stand for this. The white Marine Corps veterans that I know would not stand for this. And I specifically know for a fact that those 2 guys who I was spending time with last weekend, both of them were white. They would not stand for this type of foolishness. And so this guy, such a douche. Like, what a douche. His name is, what is his name? Vassilis Pistolas. Vassilis Pistolas. He sounds like an immigrant. He has an immigrant name. That's a Polish name, I think. Pistolas.
I'm not sure.
That might be a Polish name. He sounds like his family immigrated here. And so I just don't understand why all this hatred is coming from people whose families clearly came over on boats and in ships and things of that nature. It's just, it's ridiculous. And so when you talk about white supremacy and when you talk about stuff like that and how much hatred that some of these white supremacists have for immigrants, like, wait a minute, your family's immigrants.
Right.
But I guess it's where you immigrate from and not, you know, that
You may be an immigrant doesn't mean you've had the same experience as another immigrant.
Speaking of white supremacists, I'm exhausted just by saying this. The same dude that organized that Charlottesville rally has decided to plan a white civil rights rally in Washington, D.C. that will be held across the street, I think that's not across the street specifically, but near the White House in Lafayette Park. This is going to be on August 11th and 12th. Now, I don't want you to freak out when I say this. I am seriously considering going.
Why?
For the sole purpose of taking photos and just documenting this time in our history, documenting these people and who they are, so that when 40 years from now, if they should ever be convicted or tried or brought up on war crimes, we will have a documentation of it. I'm really thinking of standing at a safe distance from these folks and taking their photos and taking photos of the evil that is happening. I'm really considering it.
You know,
and live streaming it, on our Kind of Sleepy page.
I don't really put that past you. It is a little, concerning. But,
I understand.
The support is there for whatever you feel like you're led to do in that aspect. One of the things that it brings, I guess, to question for me is, way back when, during civil rights movement and things, there were documentation and photos and things released so that people who were not a part of it could understand what was happening. And so they could be educated on the truth that they were not privy to, right?
Right.
That's not the case now.
No.
So, who are we trying to inform? Not questioning your thought process, but I'm just saying in general, like, who are we trying to reach out to? Who are we showing proof to? And what happens afterwards?
Right.
Like,
because we've seen this before.
Right. We've seen it. Like, it's over and over and over and over again. So who needs to see it for the change to happen? I know, back in the day, that was a thing. They wanted, white people to understand what was happening in the South.
People really don't believe that racism is a problem. Think about it. This guy is saying that he's here for white civil rights, as if white people have never had civil rights in this country.
No. Well, I think a lot of people nowadays, this whole, reverse discrimination, and they feel like that there's been so much emphasis on civil rights for minorities that white people have lost theirs and they are not taken into consideration. That's the new argument.
So check this out. This is what he says. This year we have a new purpose, and that's to talk about the civil rights abuse that happened in Charlottesville last year. Whose civil rights got abused?
They feel like they have a right to be racist and express it. That's a right, right?
Yeah. So let's move on, because we talk about not having civil rights, and a big argument that we have in this country. We only got a little bit of time left, but we have a big argument in this country is that black people still aren't treated equally in this country, and that we're always seen as part of the problem, even when we're not doing anything that would be different from anyone else. Our very existence appears to be a problem. So the next 4 stories that we're talking about kind of prove that point. So there's a Bahama Breeze in Orange Village, which is in Ohio, Orange Village near Cleveland, Ohio, where the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta, one of my favorite sororities, I love the Deltas, I love the Reds, they were at Bahama Breeze celebrating one of their sorority sisters getting a book deal. And they had waited 25 minutes on their checks to get ready to leave. And so when you wait about 30 minutes for a check, anybody says, well, if y'all don't bring my check, I'm going to leave without paying. Apparently you don't want this money. Anybody would say that, waiting 30 minutes for their bill.
Right.
Apparently when these ladies said that, the police were called. The police were called, and they were told that they would not leave until everybody paid their bill. Now, you're sitting here in a room full of some of the most educated women in the country, black, white, Hispanic, or otherwise. And there are white members of Delta Sigma Theta. There have been white members of Delta Sigma Theta, if I'm not mistaken, since at least the 50s. If I'm not mistaken. I know that my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, has been integrated since the 40s. So there are members of Delta Sigma Theta who are of all races. And the police were standing there to make sure everybody paid. Now, you have doctors there. You have engineers there. You have educators there. You have people who would absolutely not have a problem paying their bill and who would absolutely not break the law over something so trivial, but yet you call the police on them because you took so long. Now, are you serious? That's the America we live in. But yet they want to march for white civil rights. I just want the right to not have the police called on me for dumb stuff. And here's the problem. They see some of these people, and I have to always make this disclaimer because some people get offended when I say white folks.
Right.
I'm not talking about every single white person in the world. When I say white people, I mean in general. So some of these white people see these killings of black folks on TV, or the police brutality we face and how upset we are. And so they call the police. At this point, if you call the police on me, I'm going to think that you either want me dead or harmed, considering what you have seen, especially if it's something for so trivial. One instance that turned out in a positive manner, even though it was still ugly and heinous, was in McKinney, Texas, where a 15-year-old girl was body slammed by this police officer because he was called for a pool party.
Horrible.
And he went through like a bull in a china shop. If you saw the video, he was chasing people, grabbing people. He grabbed this young lady by the hair, body slammed her, pinned her down, and handcuffed her. And she was yelling for her mom. Well, that guy resigned from the force. His name was Officer Eric Casebolt. I'm pretty sure he's working for a completely different group now. But she was awarded $148,850. Her attorney, Kim T. Cole, is hosting a pool party for her to celebrate this victory, as well as her high school graduation. She's graduating from high school this year. She plans to use a portion of the money to start a business, and that she's going to school to become a dentist.
Wow.
So that's a positive thing that happened when people are held accountable for poor police action. But then there's another situation that happened in East Pittsburgh, the city of East Pittsburgh, not East Pittsburgh, the region, but the city of East Pittsburgh, where a young man, Antoine Rose, who was a suspect in, criminal activity, was shot in the back as he ran away. And there's a video of him being shot in the back. What's even worse is that the extended version of this video has been released today, where one of the neighbors that saw the police officer shoot him in the back basically said he didn't care at first and then said, F that nigger. And it's all caught on video. You hear it very, very clearly in the video. Now, So rest in peace to Antoine Rose.
Definitely.
Because my thing is, I'm not advocating that people not be held accountable for their actions. I'm advocating that people get their right to a trial, and that you're not judge, jury, and executioner on the street. I want police to be held accountable for when they shoot people in the back. And this guy was actually fired from a university where he was repeatedly reprimanded for mistreating and physically assaulting black children while he was a police officer for that university. 90 minutes before he shot Antoine Rose, he had just been sworn in as a police department officer for this department. So this is what happens. They beat on us, kill us, and then get new jobs. Betty Shelby, who killed Terrence Crutcher, is back on the street.
But that's the thing that gets me, like, working in the financial industry. If I do certain things and I get fired,
you will never get another job.
I cannot work in the financial industry again anymore. Like, that's just not an option. So I don't understand how a police officer can have another job. So that's crazy to me.
Here's my thing. It's two things need to happen. Police need to be held accountable, but people who call the police for stupid reasons need to be held accountable.
Right.
And one of those people who need to be held accountable is Alison Edel, who is the owner and CEO of, Treatwell Health, which sells cannabis products for people, and apparently including pets, according to some of our responses. Alison Edel's stupid ass, and we have the video on our Facebook page that was taken from this young lady's mother. There was an 8-year-old that was selling bottled water. It's hot outside. It's summertime. It's San Francisco. This young lady wanted to make a couple extra bucks by sitting on her apartment stoop and selling bottled water, probably for like $1, maybe $1.50. No different from a lemonade stand, but something that, is in my opinion, safer, because bottled water, well, it has a top on it, and you can't put anything weird in it. So this lady's sitting on her stoop, and she's selling bottled water, and we see this video start up, and the young girl's mother is on the video. And she's, basically taking video of this lady calling the police. And Alison Edel's claim is that she doesn't like people selling water without a permit. So you call the police on an 8-year-old child? So Miss Edel decides to post to her social media, before she deleted some of her other social media accounts. Guys, please stop with the negative comments and messages. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. As a businesswoman myself, I will always strive to encourage female entrepreneurship. But as a business-minded individual, I cannot respect anyone that violates the law. Age does not justify breaking the law. If we allowed anyone to do whatever they wished, then that would lead to a slippery slope and would be an attack on our democracy. Everyone, please understand, I'm not against female entrepreneurship. I am not racist. I love all people. I am against unlawful and unfair practices. Then she ends it with all lives matter.
Child, bye.
And justice. I won't smoke with Alison Edel. I want all the smoke. I'm serious. You call the police on my 8-year-old, and then when I come out to video you, your stupid ass hides behind a damn a little wall or something. I guess a little short wall, like near like a column, almost like a mini column. Your dumb ass hides behind there like I can't walk around there. You so damn stupid. I want all the smoke with Alison Edel. I want to take her CBD oils and her cannabis products, and I want to take them, smoke them, and give her all the smoke that comes from them. I want all kinds of smoke. From now on, every week, I'm finding somebody I won't smoke with.
Oh, okay.
I won't smoke with Alison Edel. Pull up.
Okay.
Pull up, Alison.
She not Alison. Not pulling. Alison not pulling up.
Pull up.
I tell you who will pull up.
Who?
Lil Uzi. Okay, we not getting into Lil Uzi again.
Lil Uzi pulled up in some gauchos and a crop top.
Yo, let's get Lil Uzi to go holler at her.
Hey, Lil Uzi.
He will pull up with his purse on his shoulder.
I'm for real.
I just watched that video of him rapping with the purse on his shoulder.
He gonna show up
I was disturbed.
With a Coach clutch and be like, so you just gonna call the police on my people? And Lil Uzi, I'm thinking about flying to San Francisco right now just because I won't smoke. And to hopefully get like an authentic, Golden State Warriors jersey.
You know.
Just saying. Anyway, man, that's going to do it for us here at the Kinda Sleepy Podcast, man. Y'all check us out on Spotify, your Apple Podcast app. You can check us out on YouTube. Hopefully video coming very soon. Check us out on Facebook because we are uploaded to Facebook. iHeartRadio. is live, and so is SoundCloud. So you can catch us on all these different things. Want to give a huge shout out to everybody that checks us out on Facebook, and I want to thank you guys for listening. Sorry about last week, but I mean, we can't control the fact that crackheads break into stuff and steal stuff. Sure. Anyway, you just keep calling me.
It makes it okay, right?
Yeah.
That's the argument, apparently.
Clearly. So thank you guys for checking us out.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll catch y'all next week. Peace.